POC Network here with another unboxing, this time coming from the company NexiGo, a company we just recently actually covered one of their previous webcam models, the N970P. This is the next step up. This is the NexiGo N970P 4K webcam with some familiar options, just like the past model or previous model that we had covered. This offers 4K. It has an 8.5 megapixel Sony Starvis sensor on board, and it has a remote that allows you to control it from a distance. And what was really nice about the previous model is the fact that it actually competed against Logitech, which pretty much had complete dominance over the industry for so long now, in the 4K realm at least. So this one shakes the ground a little bit from underneath it by providing a few new features and some competition to leave Logitech sweating over. So this one takes it the next step further. It offers additional digital zoom, where the previous model offered up to 5x digital zoom. This one offers up to 10x digital zoom, depending on the resolution you have it in. Now, that being said, it offers up to 4K resolution, but the digital zoom exists in the lower resolutions because you still have that, everything has to exist within that 4K field of play. So just consider a big 4K window, and if you want to use digital zoom and zoom in on an object, basically you take it down to about 1080p or 720p and then zoom in. And as you zoom in, it fills up that 4K field, zooming into that object. And then you have AI. This one has AI built into it. And what that is an AI-driven auto-framing system. So, and it all depends on how many people are in the image. So if it's just you, it's gonna follow you. So if you're zoomed in, it should hopefully follow you and size the field around you to just focus on you specifically. If there's more individuals in the image, then it'll focus on multiple individuals. So that way you've got everybody in the frame at all times. That way you don't have to worry about framing people in manually. You can just set it to the auto frame and the AI will take care of it for you. Now, like the other model, this one offers up to 4K at 30 frames per second. But this one takes it up a notch in this category as well, because it also offers up to 1080p at 60 frames per second. However, I believe it requires a firmware update. So you do need a firmware update to be able to make use of this, or else it might be stuck at 1080p at 30 frames per second. But you should be able to get up to 60 frames per second with the latest firmware, at least in 1080p. As 4K is still going to be set to 30 frames per second. As for your field of view, you have a wide field of view for the most part with this. You have anywhere between 25 degrees and 90 degrees within your field of view, depending on your zoom status. So as you zoom in, obviously your field of view is kind of going to tighten and tighten as it focuses on whatever you're zooming into. But as it's fully zoomed out in 4K or whatever resolution you have it in, you have up to 90 degrees field of view, which is useful since this can actually be placed up to 90 inches away from whoever you're shooting in front of the webcam. So it's anywhere between 15 and 90 inches because this actually has a static focus. You do not adjust the focus on this. There's no autofocus, manual focus, or anything. It's just a fixed focus, and it's set within a field, or at least a range of, as I said, 15 to 90 inches. So you can get it really close to yourself like you would a normal webcam, just sitting in front of a laptop or a desktop experience. Or if you got a meeting room and you want to capture everybody within that 90-degree field of view, then you can take it up to 90 inches away from everybody so you can get a nice big window to focus on and still allow you to zoom in and out if you need that feature. It has built-in stereo omnidirectional microphones with noise cancellation, which is a very neat feature. So you can not focus on all the sounds around you. If you have kids running around or other office noises, if you're using this at work, it'll try to filter all that out and focus on just the speaking voices of those in front of the camera. And it'll work or pick up audio up to 20 feet away from the camera too. So that way, when it's up to 90 inches away or anything else you're trying to focus on, you're going to be able to pick up that audio within 20 feet while still being able to cancel out the audio around you that shouldn't be in the video. It has low light correction on multiple levels, which is pretty nice. You're able to control the brightness up and down, and then they continue to take it one step further by offering a built-in on-screen display and menu system. So normally you'd have to make any adjustments to the camera, any manual adjustments at least, using your own software or downloadable software from the company. So if you're using OBS or just Windows Camera app or anything else, you can adjust everything from there usually. But this actually has a built-in on-screen display menu. So similar, like just connecting a TV or a monitor up to your computer, or you're able to control everything from the TV or monitor separately, and you're not having to make those adjustments from the computer. You can do everything from the camera itself using the remote, and it saves everything on board within its own flash memory. So now you don't have to worry about adjusting it every single time you move it from one computer to another if you plan on using this as like a mobile kit, or you just bounce between two different systems, let's say at home or at work. All those settings, if you want them to remain the same, will. You do not have to set them each time because it'll be saved in the camera. And all of that with a webcam that is Zoom certified and compatible with virtually anything from gaming consoles to computers to anything that can take a USB webcam. This should work with it, especially since all of your settings are in the camera. You don't have to be reliant upon software so much. So that really takes up the level of support that a model like this has to offer because of that, because it's doing all the hard lifting for you. Whatever you plug it into just needs to be able to see it. And with that, it's not much more than the previous model that we had covered, the N970P, which was $150 MSRP. This one is only $199 MSRP. So for $50 more, you're getting all these additional features, which makes for a pretty good selling point. So for now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this up. We're gonna see what it looks like, what it comes with inside of the box. And then you're gonna see a demonstration of it right here, right now, of what it looks like on camera. And the first thing you are brought to is your cable. You have a really long USB 3.0 cable here, and it's really well shielded and everything. So even if you do take this mobile with a kit, bouncing between computers, you're never going to have to worry about this cable giving out on you, or just any kind of abnormal wear on it, because this is a pretty heavy duty cable right here. And then you have a lens cover, and it just pops onto the top of the camera, and you lift it up and lift it down, and it just covers the lens and prevents people from being able to, see you. In case anybody has gained access to your camera that shouldn't have, or if you're at work, because usually the local admin, whoever's in charge of all the computers on your network, typically does have access to devices that are plugged into computers, so they technically could spy on you. So in case you just want to cover your camera so that doesn't happen, you do have one of these. And then you have the user manual. Now the user manual is just in one language, but if it's anything like the previous one, which it does seem to be, everything seems to be pretty user friendly, and everything's explained to in terms of what each menu page has to offer in terms of color adjustment, system settings, exposure settings, image, noise reduction, and so forth. Everything's right here. It walks you through everything, as well as what all the options are on the remote, which is important because you're going to want to familiarize yourself with what the remote's doing at all times. So that way you're not adjusting something you don't understand and making yourself look funny to the other side. Now thankfully, in most cases, whatever software you're using, you could probably see it yourself, so you can see it happening live, but just in case. As for the remote is just slightly more simple, we'll say, than the past model. You have just a few buttons here. You have your power, you have a menu button here, you have your directional pad here with an OK, a selection button in the middle. Now the directional panel here is going to be for when you're zooming in. Once you're zoomed in, that'll allow you to move left, right, up, down. You're just moving the eye pretty much within your field of 4K. And then you have 3 preset buttons right here, 1, 2, and 3. So if you want to save presets for each of these buttons, depending on your use of the camera, you can do that and easily recall them from just simply pressing one of these buttons. And then you have your zoom, which is zoom out and zoom in, as well as an auto framing button, which enables or disables the auto frame AI feature of the camera. And that's it. So your adjustments to your brightness or anything like that, any kind of compensation for your low light conditions or anything like that, it's going to be handled from the built-in menu instead of having dedicated buttons for that. And then you have the camera. Now the camera definitely looks just a tad bigger than the 950. So this is going to have a little bit more bulk to it. So that's important to understand, that if you're limited on space, this one does have a little bit of a size to it, a little bit of weight too, but it's not too bad. But it definitely has a footprint to it that's going to take up a little bit more space than your typical webcam. So this is definitely good for office conditions, but if you're working with a laptop with limited space, this may or may not work for you during travel. If so, if you need something a little bit smaller than this, you can always check out their 950p or one of their other models that offers 4K. But you have your dual microphones right here for capturing your stereo recording, and then you have your USB connection on the back, just off to the side right here. Your lens is in the center, and that's it. Again, the lens cap connects onto the camera. You can just slide it in from the side here for easily installing it. And again, it just flips up and down to protect the lens, or just block the lens so people can't see you. And then the mount is attached to the camera. It cannot be removed. It is permanently, statically attached to it. It doesn't spin left and right, but it does move up and down in two different swivel points right here. It's similar to just about every webcam mount or base that's out there in the market. And then on the bottom here, you have your camera threads. So that way this can actually go onto any kind of a camera mount or tripod. So if you want to just have that coming down from any kind of articulating arm, or just, like I said, a tripod, you're able to do that quite easily with this. So that way this can be used in multiple different ways, and or what the whole purpose of the swivel, the two different swivel points here, is not only to be able to get the camera exactly pointed at you the way you want it to, but to also be able to, sit on top of a monitor, let it be a laptop monitor or a full-size desktop monitor. And that is the NexiGo N970P camera. Pretty simple. You just have your cable, your remote, your camera, and your instructions. Everything else is built into it, and it is absolutely feature-filled. So what we really want to know is, what does it look like? So let's go ahead and take a look. So now you're looking at the N970P camera. This is what I look like in 4K. I have it in 4K, which means there's no zoom control, but it's 4K. And this is what I sound like in front of the camera as well, which actually isn't too bad. It's not as good as using something like this. This obviously is a professional microphone. We use this for broadcast and all sorts of things, So we work with brands like Shure and Sennheiser that provide some of the industry's best audio recording or capture. However, in a webcam, you don't always get this. Usually you get, anything from just decently good to really tinny. And so far, this sounds pretty decently good coming from this model. It looks good as well. I'm about, I'd say, 20 to 25 inches away from the webcam right now. So again, it's in 4K. I can move out and I can move in, and everything looks fine because, again, you have a very wide range of distance in terms of where the focus is really dialed into. So you don't have to worry about adjusting focus or any autofocus moving in and out and distracting whoever is watching you, which is important because that can get quite annoying on some of the models that are out there that feature autofocus. So this is just fixed focus, no matter where you are within that field of range, between, I believe it was 15 and 90 inches, you're going to be in frame and looking great. So like in this situation, I'm looking good. If I put this remote right up to the camera like this, I can see my preview monitor right here. It looks just fine. Behind me, everything is nice and in focus. So you have just a nice big field of fixed focus right there to play with. But again, 4K looks great. Can't zoom because we're in 4K, so we're going to have to bring it down to 1080p or 720p to really make use of the digital focus. Now we're going to bring it down to 1080p, I'd say. So that way it still looks really nice, and you can still get an idea of how far you can focus into your subject. So let's go ahead and change that now. So now we're in 1080p. And it looks like we do have the latest firmware because it does show up as 60 frames per second. We can actually choose 30 frames per second as well, but we do have the option for 60. We're in it right now. So we do have the updated firmware, so you may not have to worry about upgrading to the latest firmware in order to be able to achieve this feature. But now that we're in 1080p, we can make use of the remote. So what I did is I just put in some of our batteries into the back of the remote because it doesn't come with batteries, so you got to supply your own. They're 2 AAA batteries, and we can start zooming in. And what's really nice is the last model we had, the zoom function was more just, it's a step zoom. This one is a smooth, constant zoom. So I can zoom right into myself. That looks terrible, but you don't want to see that. Thankfully I shaved today. But you're able to zoom in. So you do get some degradation there. It does look like in the image. As you zoom in, it does look kind of bad. And of course, again, you have your left-right controls in the directional pad, so that way you can move around the image and focus on exactly who you're trying to now. But if I just want to be able to focus on just this, I can do that by zooming into myself, or I can bring it out to capture more people. Of course, if I have auto framing on, which I'm going to hit now. So with auto frame enabled here, it's going to, or it should track me, I believe, maybe it takes a quick second for it to kick in. There it goes. Now it's just trying to keep me in frame at all times. If I get close, it's going to follow me as I move around. And of course, it's going to adjust if there's more people in the image as well. We should have got more people in here, actually. That would have been great. So we can see how it sees everybody as everybody's within frame and not just one person. But it is tracking me. So if I'm in a conference and I start to move around or anything like that, it's going to try to follow me to make sure I'm always in frame and really just the focus of what's on the screen. If you had more people though, it's going to try to fit everybody into the image. And again, you do not have zoom control while you have the AI auto framing enabled because it's taking care of all of that for you. Now we're going to take that back off so we can play with that zoom again because that was pretty cool. Looks like it takes a second for it to turn off completely. So the zoom controls will take a moment to function for you again. So again, this is zoom. This is what 1080p with zoom looks like, and this is what I sound like. Now we're going to go back to 4K because 4K just looks fantastic. So this is 4K. This is what it looks like. Again, this is a pretty good image. I mean, just the color accuracy that I'm seeing in the preview monitor here, the clarity of everything is absolutely fantastic. And from what I've heard a moment ago, because I stuck some of the earbuds in my ear to see what we were hearing from the computer, it sounds pretty good and better than the 950p camera, because the N950p camera sounded a little bit tinny. This one definitely sounds much better, at least from what I heard. Also a slight correction here, which I've just noticed, is it does zoom in while in 4K. So you don't have to dumb it down or bring it down to 1080p or 720p. It will still zoom in while you're in 4K. And this is what it looks like. So that's something to that was a very scary view right there. But that is something to see, or what it looks like if you are zooming in 4K, because it is definitely a digital stretch when you're using that, so you're going to see some degradation there as well, because again, it's digital zoom. You're not actually getting optical zoom on this model. Now, optical zoom is always going to give you a better view because it's an actual lens that's zooming in, so optically everything's going to look just the same. Where digital zoom is it's digitally expanding the image, and it's not going to look as nice. So there you go. Again, it is the NexiGo N970P 4K camera with digital zoom, remote control, built-in AI for auto framing, built-in menu and settings, all handled within the camera itself, its own flash memory. There's just a lot of stuff going on for this camera for $199, and so far it's looking pretty good. Of course, we'll probably have something about this later on at plcnetwork.net when we've definitely had time to really dig deep and see what we like about this. So check it out when the time comes at plcnetwork.net. If you liked what you've seen here, don't forget to subscribe, hit that button below and follow us, as well as like the video, and use the comment section if you have any comments, suggestions, questions, or anything else for each other and for us, or for maybe NexiGo in case you want them to see any of your thoughts. Definitely use the comment section below because they might be watching, but we're definitely watching, everybody else is, so definitely communicate with each other, and as always, we thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time. If you want to stay on top of all the latest and greatest, and or at least the gadgets we cover, remember to subscribe right here. Subscription button. Click it. You're going to want to. There's lots of videos, interviews, previews, all sorts of stuff. Button. Click it.